On Vancouver Island, in the village of Cumberland, is a hidden place. A magic place. A place unchanged. Verdant wetlands. Footpaths through quiet alder forests. A deep ravine with sandstone walls full of ferns and maples. It's a very special place. See if you can find it.
I want to thank Lee for inviting me today, and I also want to extend thanks to the people who put clearly a great deal of love and care and attention and energy into creating a community like this. It's lovely to see, and community is extremely important. I don't know if you noticed, but at the very end of that video, it sort of zoomed out to what I'm trying to prevent. And what I'm trying to prevent is not housing, it's inappropriate housing, putting houses in the wrong places for the wrong reasons. And so that's sort of the theme of why I'm here. I have a slide presentation that I made, and I don't like slides, but at the last minute I thought, well, I'd really like to get some information across, so I guess maybe this is perhaps the best way to do it. And I haven't actually made a slideshow like this in nearly 20 years. I moved here.
I'm sorry, I guess there's been some miscommunication. You didn't get the slide presentation done.
I will not be giving a slide presentation. And many people will probably be saying to themselves, good. Okay, no, I did prepare a slide presentation, but that's okay. So I'm going to just do off the cuff. When I moved to Cumberland in 2009, I've been coming there for several years, and I finally moved in 2009, and after about a year, I had retired, and I'd been there. My wife came to me and said, "You need a job." And so I said, okay, and she said, "And I found one for you." There was a local environmental organization called Project Watershed that needed an interim director, and so I stepped in and spent a year there, and got involved in the environmental community of the Comox Valley. Comox Valley is about a 3-hour drive north of here. It's an hour north of Nanaimo. It's about 60,000 people. The town of Cumberland is 7 kilometers inland from Bain Sound, and it's an old mining community of about 5,000 to 6,000 people. Up until about 20 years ago, they used to call it Cumberland, or Dodge City. It was, they had 6 coal mines there. The last one closed in the 60s, and it had a reputation as being a kind of a down and dirty sort of place. You know, the miners, there were considerably more bars than there were churches there, and you know, it had that sort of reputation. But it was also being discovered, as I have been, Excuse me. So, my wife's house was built in 1897, and it's one of the old coal miners' houses. One day I walked into the backyard, and I went through the gate, and the gate just opens up on all of this forest, and I just thought, oh, it's just all forest. But as I went walking, I saw something, kind of a ravine, and to get down into the ravine, I had to sort of sit on my butt and skinny down into the thing. But once I got down there, it was a revelation. And it was an absolutely beautiful place. You saw in that film how lovely it is. The history of the ravine is that there's a developer who is a very wealthy and powerful man, and he owns a big earth-moving company. And he has at his disposal giant earth-moving machines, dump trucks, people who are dynamiters and blasters, and his specialty is flattening things out so that he can put houses on them, which is, okay, we need houses. But what he did was, in the land behind our house, he began flattening things out and putting houses there. And he got, as part of the development agreement, he ceded a certain amount of land as parkland. And this was required by the council at the time, and he did cede this land. He ceded the land that was least possible for developing. And he thought of it as just wasteland or junk, and of course it was this hidden ravine. So he got away without creating any other parks. If you go into that development you saw in the photograph there, it's just houses. There are no parks. There's one of the council members said there's no place for a kid to kick a ball. So, however, the development is not finished. There's still additional land. He owns all the land around the park. One of the things I would have shown you had I the slideshow was a map. And basically what that shows is this park. There are several things about the way this park is designated. One of which is that the actual boundaries of the park are linear. They're square. Well, if you've ever been out in nature, which I expect you probably have been, nature is not square. Nature doesn't follow nice and straight lines. So the park actually doesn't encompass the landforms. The park doesn't encompass the slopes. It doesn't encompass the watershed. It doesn't encompass any of that. The other thing about this land is it's entirely surrounded by private land, which is there is no access to this park. It's actually a park. It's actually owned by the village of Cumberland, but you can't get to it. And so anytime we go and we show the park, and we're trespassing. And they've tried putting up no trespassing signs, and some person not to be identified has been tearing them down. They put up fences, and some person not to be identified has been, with a saw and cutting very respectful holes in the fences so that we could get in. But the developer has continued to submit plans for this particular piece of property that would put houses right up literally to the edge of this park. And they had backyards right above an 80-foot cliff. It's the cliff that we called where bicycles go to die. Because for ages, ever since kids have been there, for fun, they would come up to the edge and they would push bicycles off. And so when I started coming into this park, there was a pile of bicycles there. Kind of local thing that they do. But when the developer started submitting these proposals to add housing to this area, what they did was they had a public session, and they would submit documentation to this public session. And one of the things that I noticed about this documentation was that the maps were very poor quality. So it was really difficult to look at their documentation and sort of see what effect this housing would have on this area. So because I was a director at Project Watershed did a lot of mapping, and so I had their mapping person teach me how to do mapping. And I went in and I created, I'm a software programmer, I'm not a map maker, but I learned how to create maps. And so I created some maps, and so what I would do is every time the developer would come in with these crappy maps that you couldn't read, I would produce really big, really high quality maps to sort of show people what was actually going on. We have the process in Cumberland for development to be approved is it goes through a citizens committee before it goes to the council. It also goes to the planning department. So for the last 15 years, I've been involved with a back and forth with this developer in trying to counter his development proposals. His proposals brought housing right up to the edge of the park, and what I did was I showed the effect that that would have. And he's had a set of 3 development proposals submitted. All 3 have been turned down by the Citizens Council. Sometimes his proposals were so outlandish. For instance, he proposed turning the wetland in this into a flood control basin. And he actually was going to build a big infrastructure right in the middle of it so that it could drain the rainwater out of there. It was so bad, I literally watched the video of the Citizens Committee looking at it, and they looked like this. You got to be kidding. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a process that you go through in order to develop land, and that process is really controlled by the council, but it's also controlled by the planning department. And the planning department they're really secretive. They hold a lot of sessions in camera, and they do this supposedly to protect the developer, but what they don't do is they don't protect the people of Cumberland. And so a lot of my work has been to try to push the planning department to be more transparent about what they do, because the developer can walk right into the planning department and sit down and pound on the desk and say, I don't like this. I can't do that, right? So what we really try to do is we try to basically shed some light on the processes going on. We do that by producing good quality maps. We do that by reading the proposals of the developers and coming up with commentary on them. We also have had to do a lot of work in understanding the laws and regulations. British Columbia, and Canada in particular, has what I call a devolved method of government, which is the province, the federal government provide guidelines, but ultimately the decisions are made by the local councils. And the local councils are, they're people, they're just regular people off the street. They're like you and I. There's a guy who owns a cannabis supply store. There's another guy who owns a bar. This is starting to take on a certain pattern here, isn't it? They're retired people, you know, there are a lot of, but what they are, they're people who really care about the village, but they're not trained professionals, and they don't really understand all the laws. So much of what we do with my group is we learn the laws, we understand the laws, and we try to help them interpret what they're doing. Because council, not only are they not professionals, they're people who care, but they're not highly trained professionals, and so a lot of times, and they're doing a lot of work. I mean, council meetings are 3 or 4 hours long, and they've got a whole bunch of resolutions they're going to do. So essentially the approach that we take is to, number one, try to leverage the people who are in the council. We work with the planning department too, and try to provide them with information. We also try to understand the developers and what they're trying to produce, because we're not trying to stop them cold. What we're trying to do is to ask them to develop in a more appropriate fashion, to perhaps reduce the number of lots that they're going to be creating here, so that we can provide access to this park. And in doing so, essentially, I wouldn't say that we have won or we have conquered. What we've managed to do is hold them at bay for 15 years. They never go away. This land is owned by someone. Someone is going to do something with it eventually. The guy who is my, opponent on the other side, the developer, he's retiring, but it's going to pass to his son, and his son will continue in the same way. So it's not like something you can't give up, you can't stop. You have to kind of keep at it, kind of keep the iron in the fire. And so we're hoping, the official community plan, I've worked on 2 of the official community plans. I don't know if you're familiar with OCPs, but basically they're a community-driven, community-created direction for villages, for cities. And they're an interesting collection of legislation. They are bylaws in and of themselves, but they're also very aspirational. So there's a lot of sort of, we would love the village to look this way and feel this way and that kind of thing. So because they are partially bylaws and partially aspirational, they're difficult to actually implement. because nobody's really quite clear just how much force they have. And so we have basically been working with the village, and I have, as an advocate for the village, I have offered to sue the village, which sounds kind of funny. But you have to realize that the village has this fulcrum, and in the center is the planning department and the council. On one side is the developer, who has tremendous resources. They've got money, they've got professionals, they've got lawyers, they've got cartographers, all of that stuff. On the other hand is the village of Cumberland. And if we are going to prevail against the resources and the power that the developer has, we have to be able to bring some legal action as well. And so, as an advocate for the village, what I've said is, if you do develop, allow a development that will impinge on the availability of this park or the environmental values of this park, we will ask the courts for a judicial review of that decision. And in doing so, what we will do is we will bring it to the courts, and it will not only help us locally in Cumberland to protect the environmental assets that we have, it will also help the province in general to clarify whether an official community plan can be enforceable. And so that's kind of where we stand right now, is we have enough people to fund a judicial review. We have put the village on notice that we will ask for a judicial review if they make this decision. And now we're in kind of a stasis. So I think the point I'd like to make is number one, that we as citizens are not powerless. There are opportunities for us to work with council, to work with the planning department, even talk to the developer, and he and I have had conversations. And the thing that you need to do, though, is you need to educate yourself. I'm a biologist. I'd much rather be out in the field in a pair of hip waders than sitting down with my lawyer and going through a developer's proposal. But that's what you have to do. Those are the things that have to be done. And we feel very confident that we will eventually either have the council decide to enforce the OCP, or through judicial review we'll have the OCP enforced, and then we will prevail in being able to protect this beautiful amenity, this beautiful piece of property that we have in Cumberland. So I thank you for your attention. We do have a closing. Do you think the closing video got through? Did the closing video get through? Great. It's the same place and the same incredibly dramatic voiceover by me. But it's in the winter, so it's really sort of what this place looks like in the winter. Thank you for your time.
On the tree island in the village of Cumberland is a hidden place. A magic place. A place unchanged. A deep ravine with sandstone cliffs full of ferns and maples. Footpaths through quiet alder forests. Verdant wetlands. It's a very special place.